Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Love every time we get together with her. So much insight of the intuitive world, what's going on the other side. And I love the fact that she's very transparent about how the process works for her. Sure, she delivers messages and communicates, but what's she feeling and how she even shared some personal situations recently. So we're going to dig back into Noelle Deane here on the program. How's it going today?
It's going really well, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm well, doing well. And
Good.
I'm going to share here. You did two readings for me. You emailed them to me, and I have yet to listen to them. I couldn't find the email, and then I did just before we jumped on here. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say because there's a reason you did it. Something came to you, and you apparently had to record it and had to share it. Does it happen like that, where you could just be walking outside and then something pops in your head? It's like, oh, wait a minute, I got something. They call it a download. Does that happen?
All the time. Actually, I have trouble keeping track of the information because I do try to note everything that I get, however I can. So I have many notebooks and I have the notes app on my phone. I downloaded a recording app on my phone thinking it would do a better transcription job, but and not like constantly. I listen to music and other stuff and podcasts and but yeah, it does happen often, but I also create that. I spend time alone. I ground myself. I leave space for it, like we've talked about here, keeping ourselves super busy. We don't allow a lot of room for that to happen. But I think for a lot of us, when we're falling asleep in the middle of the night, when we first wake up, we wake up with maybe a song or part of a dream that seems significant. We probably all get, maybe not daily, but information all the time.
Is it because we're so busy and we got so much going on that we don't even realize what's coming our way?
That is a huge part of it, even probably for people who really focus on their intuition. But I really think a lot of people, and that's why I feel really committed to trying to have everyday normal people just see themselves as having these same kind of gifts. And I'm using air quotes for gifts because I wasn't somebody who I would have thought would ever be a medium. And there are people that I know who have developed mediumship because they're interested, but they were not born that way. They weren't talking to, dead people when they were in the crib. It's something people can develop. I look at it as a gift because it's absolutely fabulous and there's a lot of healing that can come from it and it's beautiful, but not because it's exclusive to some people. I think a lot of people don't believe that they can receive that kind of information. And we've talked about that kind of thing with you, where you're like, well, people might not believe me. And I'm sure you had plenty of doubt for a long time, as did I, as did everybody else that I know. We all have to, I mean, almost like suspended disbelief if you wanted to connect with somebody in spirit, that you just have to put aside the doubting part and say, screw it. Let me just pretend that I believe this, or just go with it and see where it takes me. But I think that's the self-doubt is a huge barrier for people.
This is going to be a weird question.
Please.
I've noticed this the more I call it tune into intuition.
Mhm.
I'm not claiming to be intuitive. I'm just, sometimes I pick up on certain things and, leave it at that. When I intentionally focus on it, and I could just look at an object, I find that I'm transported to a different world for a moment. Like it's like a weird out of body kind of thing where I'm fully conscious. I'm staring at something, but I feel different. Like it's never happened before until maybe the last year or so, where I guess I've fine tuned concentrating on something, an object, just to get me out of my head, and then just feeling like, what just happened? Wow, I was, hearing, or not hearing, but feeling, sensing certain things, maybe time traveling in my life. I'm trying to describe it, but it's very recent that this has been going on. And I'm wondering if you experience anything like that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that because that's pretty vulnerable of you to even share something that sounds pretty out there. So
Hey,
thank you
thanks for
for
saying
that.
it. Sounds pretty out there.
Times I hear myself and I'm like, what the F, Noelle? Like, who says stuff so when you say this sounds kind of weird, but I'm going to share, I think the weirder the better because we're not expecting things. We're not making that kind of thing up. So it sounds weird, which is why you're a little hesitant, but it's beautiful that you are doing that. I love that you're going with that, and thank you for being open about it. And there are a variety of explanations of why you would be experiencing that, and you're certainly not the only one. There are people who can sit in a location, and I don't know if this is exactly what you've got going on. I also just want to acknowledge that our, abilities, our intuition, because you've really been working on your intuition from what you've been sharing here, more things open up, new things will develop, new, let's say, skills or so I would venture to say that it could be that as you're in that place staring at that item, you could be transported to the past or the future of that specific place that you're sitting. That is possible. You could also
Oh,
be projecting your energy out to somewhere else and, like, let's say, quote, visiting some other place. This is the kind of situation where I love doing channeled coaching, but working with somebody who's, an intuitive that can ask your guides basically like what is happening, where you could ask questions and get clarity on what exactly is happening
hmm.
because you don't know your potential and you're highly intuitive, sir. You really are. And you're claiming it. And some of that probably is like that stage of life where we're really just trying to learn to like really be ourselves, not worrying about other people's judgments and opinions.
Yep.
So you're kind of letting it out more and giving yourself more permission. That's beautiful.
I even try it like I could be on the treadmill at the gym and I'll focus on something and I'm, I don't want to say out of body, but
You're
I'm,
transported though. Yeah.
and it actually helps me like, yeah, I want to go another 15 minutes, but I'm, kind of tired here or I'm getting bored, whatever, but I
Hmm.
want to keep going. So I'll just focus and I don't even know that I'm there. Like I know I'm there, but I know I'm like,
Wow.
it's weird. It's a weird kind of like, and it just comes from staring at something. And I've done it before, and it's brought me. I don't know if I shared this, but it's brought me to other times in my life where I felt I was there at that moment, decades back, just by staring at an object and really just
Wow.
stare, 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 and then things come. It's really weird.
I got to try that.
Uh,
What I'm just feeling a bit flashed back to is, and I can't remember if I shared this story when when we first met, and I was talking about my experience with the psychic, where I had a bad experience. But one of the things that happened was, and I assume this was her suggestion because I'd never done it before, but I found myself, laying on the floor staring up at like a naked light bulb. And a whole vision came to me from a picture from my grandparents' living room and seeing all of the people. She had just uh, told me that I needed to become a dancer to give her more money. And I saw this picture of grandparents and great grandparents, and they all started doing the can dance. This is just by staring at a light bulb. And it was like super clear.
Well, just what you're saying is kind of what I'm saying. That's I can't explain it, but it's cool when I want to get out of body. Like again,
Yeah.
at the gym. And it's like I want to keep going, but I'm kind of bored, but I want to keep going. And I'll just stare out the window and I'll find, a thumbtack on a
Mm.
uh, telephone pole. And then it takes me there. What do you say to people who are skeptical? Skeptical about what they're getting, skeptical
Mm.
about what comes from you. How do you address that?
I try not to. If there's, look, I think all of us are skeptical. I would question anybody who wasn't skeptical about what they're receiving until they've really kind of proven themselves in certain ways. And even as I say that, I want to roll my eyes at myself a little bit, because if somebody, if I talk to somebody at like the line in the supermarket or in the bathroom, as I did the other day at a like you just kind of strike up a conversation, and somebody told me, now I have Mr. Jones in my head, strike up a conversation. Sorry.
Yeah. Counting crows.
Sorry.
Got it.
There, thank you. I mean, just
Was
like
it
you
was the
say,
conversation with the flamingo dancer?
while she was dancing,
Right.
um,
Oh, it was a can dancer. My bad. Okay, I
it
got it
was
now.
see, you were close. You were close.
Hmm.
Look, I have no reason to not believe people if they told me that they experienced certain things. I think it's cool that they're sharing about it and that they're just like you're describing what you're doing. I think people's fear of being crazy interferes a lot with their willingness to believe that they are connected, because the two probably, I don't know, can feel very similar. And actually, I kind of do know. So many years ago, when I first moved to San Diego, post that negative experience I had, I used to feel it felt like a bug was crawling around on my head at times. It was weird. I thought I had fleas or tick. I didn't know. I went to see the doctor and I explained some things I'd been experiencing, and the doctor started asking me like, "So what's been going on in your life?" And he deduced that I was very stressed. And, I'm a licensed therapist, so I've looked back at that time and thought, I wonder if those were tactile hallucinations, where sometimes people feel like they're having like a psychotic moment. And if you're depressed, you have PTSD. Oh, my disclaimer. So I am a licensed therapist, but the information presented on this podcast is educational in nature only and is provided only as general information, not medical or psychological advice, nor is it a substitute for seeking licensed healthcare services. So this is just general talking, not to anybody in particular. But I remember experiencing those feelings on my head, and it happened quite often. And there are times in the last couple of years I've tried to look back and ask, was that stress or was that my grandmother? Was that just, I was having some kind of psychotic moment? And psychotic doesn't always mean you fall off the edge of the world kind of thing. It can just be something as simple as feeling something or seeing something that's not there, and your brain is playing tricks on you. But I can totally get why it would be scary. There are times, I mean, I remember seeing the outline of a cat when I was at work, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. And because it was not at the church where I'd taken a where I had been learning skills, or it was so out of context, it was a moment where I was just like, oh crap, like, am I actually starting to just kind of see things? It was a little bit scary. So there's
Hmm.
like a fine line. Now, the reason I know I'm not full of crap and I know I'm not crazy is that I'll get very specific information for people during readings. And this has been happening for years. And the weirder, the better. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's my so-and-so. Like we talked about that story about the fat cat on the ship with the hat. And, like I had no reason to say anything. And it sounded crazy coming out of my mouth. I didn't even want to say it. And this was if you didn't hear what we talked about last time, it was just a test in a mediumship class that I was taking, and I had to read somebody for the first time, and it was kind of terrifying.
Hmm.
So I think that that self-doubt and the fear of like, there are times even now I joke like, oh my God, I've fallen off the edge, because there's wacky stuff that comes out of my mouth, but I know I experienced it, or I know I was told that. It still feels weird though.
What do you feel that makes you believe it?
Oh, I love that question. Well, actually, I've learned to trust myself and what I get. So there's that. So I don't question and throw anything away. Um, I use myself as a pendulum to do the energy testing to ask, hey, am I getting this right? Am I really getting this? So,
Hmm.
and I use that a lot because I can still have doubts. So just to give you a heads up about the thing about your mom. So I was preparing for us to meet. And I don't know why I was thinking about her, but I was just thinking about her. We talk about her from time to time when we talk.
Yeah, it
And
just
she
comes
just kind
up
of,
and it's almost illustrates what we talk about in some ways.
yes, definitely. And maybe it was even the night before we were supposed to record that I just had a sense of her being around me. I was thinking, I don't know, I was thinking about her out of and without any context for thinking about her. And then she gave me an appointment time, like tomorrow at 8 a.m. And I was like, okay, Rosemary, and I know her name because you've mentioned her name before. So we met. She gave me a song, and I know you haven't heard the reading yet, but she gave me a song, "You Just May Be the One" by the Monkees. And then she explained why she brought that song. But, getting things that are surprising and unexpected, as I've talked about, is, one of my mediumship tips. That's a huge part of it. Like I'll get things that I'm like, wait, what? And even that to me is like, now it's validation because I wasn't thinking that and I wouldn't think that. So I just go with it. And I ask kind of the whole time. So I use a few different ways to feel confident in what I say. But I don't know, I feel in the flow. I can feel their energy. There are times when I'll just get like sort of chills on my arms or legs, and things will move through me, and I'll feel that. So it's multi-sensory as well. I'll hear things, I'll see things, I'll just kind of know stuff all at the same time.
I'm looking forward to hearing that audio and I'm going to get to that after we're off today.
Yeah.
Do you find that and that monkey song doesn't resonate right away, but I'll be looking at the lyrics. It might be there's something there. Do
She
you
explains why she chose that song, by the way, because I did ask her. So when you listen, you'll understand
okay.
why. Yeah.
Do you when you're getting something, do you share everything as opposed to filtering it? And just here it is, do whatever you want with it, but this is what downloaded for you and have at it. That's it. That's what I got.
Unless something feels a little bit fishy, or like, wait, was I thinking and not just receiving? Or, the energy of that felt a little bit off to me. So let me just double check here. But otherwise, my intention is to, yeah, like as verbatim as possible, relay the information that I get. And I would say, I don't know, 90 something percent of the time, that's what I do. I want to say 99. I don't know that that's true, but that's the number that I'm seeing, so I should go with it. And even just talking, stuff comes to me all the time. So I wouldn't think 99, but that's what I'm getting. So, but, this is my life. This is what I do. So I'm always trying to be open.
So you have a book. You've mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Can we go back to that? I know it's available on Amazon.
Yes. So it's called Mediumship Foundations, a complete guide for the absolute beginner.
Wow.
And not to be crass, but I think if you had this in your bathroom, you might be able to get through it in a week. It's 56 pages long. It's very thin.
Hmm.
And it is like, really, I did my best to put the nuts and bolts of mediumship in one place. I've been acquiring the knowledge and skills of it for almost 30 years. I've taught it for about 3 years. I'm a bit of an uptight therapist, so defining things and making them clear concepts is really important to me and something that I've really worked at. And I really love this book. There are several books I will be writing and have been channel writing the drafts of things. So anyway, books are in my future. I believe I'll be doing 7 in total from what I've been told. But I'm proud of this book. And when I teach my online course, it will be using this book as the outline for that and then just expanding with exercises. And that's like the next step in how I'll be teaching is doing it that way. But I really want everyday normal people to see themselves as capable as anybody else to get information. It's not for, the special or the especially connected or the born with, and sorry, everybody else.
Is it as easy as just hearing it, listening to it, blocking everything else out, and then believing what you're getting? Because I'm sure on a daily basis, everybody feels something, senses something, and they just, it just doesn't resonate with them unless you're intentional about it. Is it that easy?
I think so. When I teach the class, I have, like I'm thinking of one woman in particular where she was like, well, blah, blah, blah. She said something very unexpected. And then she's like, but I could be making that up. And I remember getting very
Mm.
close to the camera, like, are you really making that up? Are you really making to get her to see, like, well, of course I'm not. Of course I'm not. But look, I didn't see myself as somebody who had the potential to be that kind of like antenna. I mean, I've been a radar for things for a long time, but this is different and it's way freaking cool. So, of course, it seems like, well, can I actually do that? But look, so you picked up on something for me, and I wanted to get back to you about that. So you picked up on that song Morning by Al Jarreau. I was saying my grandfather brings Al Jarreau songs, these sort of sappy love songs. You pick up on Morning, which I'd never heard
It just
before.
dropped in my head out of nowhere. Came out in the early 80s.
Yeah. So, and then we talked about you getting that song, and you're like, Golden Gate Bridge, Noelle, Golden Gate Bridge.
Part of
It's
the
like
part of the
loud
lyric.
in my head, right? So I sat with Golden Gate Bridge. And this is what I recommend for everybody who receives a reading or receives, let's say, a hit from somebody, right? Not even a whole reading, but just like, this is what I'm getting. I'm hearing this for you. Really sit with it. So I sat with it. And when I stopped being more in my head and just trying to just sort of sit with the information, what I remembered was I have a grandfather that I never knew that was kind of distant, maybe a step grandfather, I don't know, but who lived kind of in that area. And what came to me was a vision of him seeing that bridge and thinking about the sturdiness of that bridge and the everlastingness of that bridge. And then the thought that came to me was I would never think to connect with him. And then as soon as I thought that, I had these other family members I never met from a side of the family I don't know, like a grandmother that I never met. Suddenly it felt like, oh, all these people that I have forgotten about. And I never even think about connecting with them. And it
Wow.
all and I'm just seeing this beautiful glowing picture of the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm getting confirmation chills on my legs. That's another validation, how we feel confirmation chills. And a lot of us get them. I get them in different places. I don't think it matters why I get it on my arms sometimes or on my legs at other times. But I really love that. And it was really
Mm.
cool to think about all these people like I never think about. And I have this one grandmother that my understanding of the few times we've connected just so briefly was she was intuitive as well, but she couldn't talk about it back in those days. And she's somebody that I want to connect with more. So that was a beautiful reading from you.
Hmm.
And you see, but you couldn't interpret that or give that to me, right? You just had to be like, no, focus on the Golden Gate Bridge.
There was
That's what I'm
something about
getting.
that. I will say that.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was standing out for me in the lyrics of that song. San Francisco, I don't know. I love what you said, the word hit, when you get a hit. That just kind of describes it. It's not a reading, it's just a hit. Just something dropped in, but you need to listen to it and you need
Mhm.
to analyze it. Maybe not over analyze it, but
Yeah.
see it for what it is because it was given as a gift. You give
Yeah.
gifts. Maybe that was a gift to you to create awareness about your family. My
Oh,
dad's
yeah.
family lived in California. Um, I just thought of this just now. So maybe that was a wake up for me as well. Maybe it was
Mm.
for both. I don't know. Uh,
We were especially in sync the last time we spoke. So that could easily be. And, it's interesting because you've talked about your dad and, not being very close with him when he was alive and not really asking him for signs. And, whenever you bring him up, I just kind of have this moment of, one of the reasons I am happy I'm a therapist who also does mediumship is that there are times when sticky family situations can come up and it makes it hard to want to connect with somebody, not like somebody who was abusive necessarily, but let's say somebody you just had a really difficult relationship with. And there have been some times, and I'm not saying I do therapy while I do mediumship because I do not, but I feel like there are times when any of us really, if we're trying to be good listeners, can kind of help mediate a little bit between people and help them
hmm.
kind of find a way to connect using mediumship that could be very healing.
That's what makes you radically different, the therapist side of you. And I'm getting a vision of something here. We're out of time, but I got to say it.
I'm writing it down. Go ahead.
No, not that kind of vision, but a thought.
Oh,
But a
okay.
thought. Um, if you are trying to connect with somebody that you didn't have the best relationship with, can it potentially be more difficult because you might not even know that you're blocking it, even though say, yeah, send me a sign, send me a sign. But really you're blocking it because, yeah, I've yet to get a sign from my dad. The other day last week I was asking, I was like, let's go, man. Come on. Show me something. And I was looking, I was waiting, see what's going to show. It could have been right in front of my face, but maybe there's a reason why I'm not seeing it. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And look, our dynamics with people.
Is that him calling?
Hello, Charlie.
You never know.
So look, it's so interesting you say this, and I'm just going to be as brief as I can. I've been told 3 times now since my sister passed, and we had a lot of, let's say, dirty water under the bridge of our relationship. I've been told, hey, watch out, because the stuff between you still kind of is there. So, we have to work out in some way how to have a better relationship. And I'm trying to relate to her in a way where I'm actually having boundaries, strong boundaries, but also trying to be connected. So I'm not really sure how to approach, when you had a difficult relationship. I think it's great that you're asking for signs, but you could be blocking it. There's a part of you that could still be like, screw you, man, you didn't blah, blah, blah for me. And he might be like, well, maybe not yet.
You said when that phone rang, you said, hello, Charlie. His middle name was Charles. His brother's name was Charles. And his brother lived in California, and his brother went by a different name. He changed his name. Can't make it up.
You can't, and that's just what came out of my mouth. So, but that's part of it, is just whatever, when it, just let it out of your mouth. When it comes up, if you don't filter it, if it feels icky, filter it. If it doesn't feel icky, you're in the flow, let it out.
Let it out. Yeah. Best way to find you. How do we do that?
Connectingwithnoelle.com. It's Noelle. If you want to email me, connectingwithnoelle@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Write to me and check out my website. And please do consider getting the book. It's $13. You can read it in a week on the toilet. It'll really help. I believe it.
We're out of time. I'm still processing the Charlie thing. It's like bizarre. You can't make that up. Then it's right when I'm talking about it, your phone rang. Can't wait to listen to the reading you did about my mom. I'm going to check that audio out. Thank you so much for today,
Cool.
Noelle.
Thank you so much, Steve. This was great.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.